Oh my goodness.
Notice the music in the background. Same principle. And the same music over and over. Create a sense of feeling and sensation. All right. So that was another one. So this uncontrollable shaking and this uncontrollable convulsing, that's blatantly, as Zach likes to put it, that's pagan.
In my mind, I'm like, why would you want to voluntarily have a seizure? Like, why? I don't understand it.
Yeah. And by the way, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to comment below and we'll get to them.
God.
No, so what ends up happening is, again, if you notice, there's music in the background. In the same way that happens in the church, in the same way that happens in these movements, there's a repetitive nature to the music, so that it kind of lulls you into this
Kind of like forces
emotionalism.
you to be in this spiritual.
Yeah, and look at again, there's nothing wrong with music. Was designed by God to glorify him and to bring emotion. I'm a worship leader at my church. So
So we have nothing against music.
I have nothing against. I love music, and music is wonderful. It's a way that can prepare the hearts of the people to receive the word. But when the music and the emotionalism and all of that becomes the principal aspect of the service and not the preaching of the word, then that's when it becomes a sin. That's when it becomes heresy. Shannon said, exactly my thought, Princess. Why would you want this? Yeah. Hey, you can actually read them off here. Yeah, why would you? Why would you want this? Why would you want to laugh uncontrollably? Socially, that's awkward. In any other context and situation.
Not only that, but if I'm truly seeking God and I think like, oh, this is what you do, like there is nothing within this that will get you closer to God.
No.
I mean, you're not truly feeling God. You're not communicating with God. You're not worshiping God in any way. God is not communicating with you in any way. So why?
Yeah, and you're not getting to know God any more deeply. It's like how ridiculous would this be if in our marriage, every time I was in a room with you, I just pointed at you and like laughed uncontrollably at you.
Or had a seizure.
Or had a seizure every time. And I was like, I just love you so much. It'd be ridiculous. There would be no growth in this relationship whatsoever.
No.
We would just be convulsing at one. There's no growth there. There's no relationship building. There's no getting to know one another. None of that is helpful to the marriage. So why would we think that that's helpful to our relationship with God?
I think it has a lot to do with your surrounding. If you show up to a church that's doing that, and I mean, if you don't know any better, then you're going to think like, this is how I get closer to God. Like I grew up, once my parents were saved and they started going to church, where they danced around. Like everybody who was a believing Christian in that church went up to the front and they started worship and they started dancing around. And I assumed this is what you do. In order for me to be closer to God, I'm going to go to the front and I'm going to dance around. And I mean, you can be led to do that in the spirit in an orderly fashion. But that doesn't mean that by you dancing around is going to make you closer to God. That you're going to feel him anymore. It's almost like you feel if I dance around, it's going to force God to be close to me because he's going to see me trying hard. And that's not reality. That is not reality.
I mean, I enjoy dancing with you. when we're at weddings or when we're at parties or something like that. And it's a wonderful experience to have that dance with you. But it's not like I come back home and then I never talk to you until we dance again, or something like that. And then I'm like, I love her because we get to dance, like
once in a
while. No, but
few months.
that's not edifying to anything. Now, there are imagery in the Old Testament where David dances, where people in the Old Testament dance when the Egyptians were thrown into the sea. The Israelites danced. So there is this aspect of dancing that is biblical in a sense. And there's a way that we can do it in the church that's God glorifying and edifying, and that's not distracting to the rest of the congregation, especially if that's the kind of environment that your church kind of has created. Now, if your church is not a dancing church, don't dance at your church, because they're going to be like, oh, you're just doing this as a distraction. So there is that aspect of we need to ensure that whatever we are doing, it's in the context of the local church, and it's in the context of a orderly service, not in disunity, not in disorderliness, and what we're trying to do here is we're trying to point out the faulty behaviors of certain churches that don't coincide with the scripture.
Yes.
So.